Carlos Alcaraz makes history in Melbourne, a four-set epic to win the Australian Open final.
Hello, I'm Linton Besser. Welcome to a new year of Media Watch. And first tonight, the 2026 Australian Open, which has seen Channel 9 revel in a wall-to-wall 21-day bonanza of tennis.
We are live from Melbourne Park ahead of a huge weekend of tennis. It's an Australian Open party and you are invited.
With day after day of relentless cross-promotion.
And one thing that's actually selling out by 11 o'clock every morning is Hector's signature donut.
Also rushing the net, Melbourne's 171-year-old paper of record, The Age, which has served up at least 168 articles during the tournament and splashing the Open across page one no fewer than 13 times. It turned the much-loved CBD gossip column into Open Season, a frenzy of tennis chatter complete with the Australian Open logo, and replaced its prestigious Saturday magazine with a supplement that looked like Good Weekend and read like Good Weekend, but was only
brought to you by Good Weekend.
And which included replicas of the magazine's most loved features, like the shopping page with AO sponsors, watches and T-shirts, and the back page quiz, which, yes, was focused on our favourite pastime. While The Age's stablemate, the Australian Financial Review, was enjoying a tipple with one of the Australian Open sponsors.
Mix a sprinkling of founders, CEOs, Channel 9 personalities and the Australian Financial Review editors. Dress them in Ralph Lauren before whisking them to the prestige lifestyle brand's elegant Ivy League-themed pavilion at Melbourne Park. And what do you get?
Gout? The elegant story featured people leisurely reading an AFR Life and Leisure lift-out, which just happened to be also dedicated to the tennis. From time to time, Ralph Lauren has also sponsored The Age's tennis blog, which, meanwhile, offers you this little button whisking you straight to Nine's streaming service, Stan. Serve and volley. There's no denying the Australian Open is a massive event. And to give credit where it's due, Nine's newspapers have published plenty of genuine and critical stories about the Open, like these. But could there be another reason for Nine's orgy of tennis? Say, for example, the $425 million the company has agreed to pay for the rights to broadcast across its platforms 5 years of the Australian Open. At the time, the Fin itself helpfully explained that
major sport events are one of the few types of programming that continue to attract large live TV audiences.
And while the vast majority of The Age's coverage has not been sponsored, the paper has only very rarely carried disclosures in its news reporting like this of its conflict of interest. While in the sports pages, this disclosure also served as a promotion. Oh, and just on conflicts of interest, special mention must go to Nine's summer radio correspondent, 3AW's Shane McInnes, who probed Tennis Australia's head of innovation as to its latest innovations.
This year, the AO is teaming up with Shake Shack.
You know, we're a highly creative organisation.
Which 3AW's man at the tennis, in fact, knows better than most. Because in addition to working for Nine Entertainment, Shane McInnes also happens to work as an in-house presenter, announcer and host for none other than
Tennis Australia.
How very convivial. 3AW also looked to Shane to ask the head of Tennis Australia about rumours he was being poached by a rival organisation.
There was a lot of speculation of that before the event, and I've told everyone I'm not fielding it.
I completely understand that. I can understand, though, if they did reach out, I can understand why.
Although on this occasion, he decided to let his audience in on the joke.
I'll be up front, I do a bit of work with Tennis Australia during the Australian Open, but it has long been one of my favourite events.
I have no doubt, Shane. A spokesperson for Nine insisted the expansive coverage of the tennis was not about promoting its live broadcast.
Our newsrooms reflect the huge interest in the Australian Open. Editorial is not sponsored, and advertising is clearly labelled, and it is factually incorrect to suggest coverage is a conflict of interest.
Not everyone is persuaded, however, including in the Age newsroom.
We still do negative stories about queues, etc. So it's not like we become actual propagandists for AO. But the sheer volume of coverage more than makes up for it. Whole thing is just so gross.
With Nine openly boasting of its cross-platform ecosystem, helping it grow in line with the Australian Open, another Age journalist put it like this.
There's no moral outrage here, there's just resignation. This is how the business runs now. We're a magazine produced by Tennis Australia boss Craig Tiley.
Oof. It is easy, of course, for us to get up on our high horse about this blurring of news and promotion. But while the ABC is a taxpayer-funded public broadcaster, Nine is most definitely not. And it is fighting to survive in a ferociously competitive global market. The line between commercial imperative and editorial independence is, however, getting ever thinner at Nine, and if its newsrooms aren't careful, it may well fade away altogether, along with their hard-fought reputations. Now we turn to the fraying of America's social compact, with deadly results.
Intensive care nurse Alex Pretty was wrestled to the ground and shot numerous times. Anger and violence then spilling onto the streets.
8 days ago, America's masked paramilitary shot nurse Alex Pretty no fewer than 10 times as he lay pinned on a Minneapolis street. Within hours, US border security officials were explaining the killing like this.
An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. An agent fired defensive shots. When you perpetuate violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism.
This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement.
Vice President J.D. Vance was blaming far-left agitators, while top White House aide Stephen Miller stated plainly that
a would-be assassin tried to murder federal law enforcement.
But smartphone vision of the shooting soon ran like wildfire across the internet, prompting painstaking analysis and a horrifying conclusion.
Federal agents claimed Alex Pretty, 37, forced their hand, alleging he violently resisted disarmament until the officers fired defensive shots. Bystander footage appears to tell a different story. A federal officer pulling a handgun away from Pretty. Less than a second later, an agent fires several rounds.
Over on Donald Trump's preferred networks, however, people were still seeing something else entirely.
Shame on that individual for creating the very consequences that ultimately cost him his life.
Only one person could have prevented this from happening, and it's Alex Pretty.
As the New York Times explained,
on Sunday morning, reporters on many TV networks were poring over multiple videos of the shooting over the weekend. But on Fox News, hosts, reporters and guests appeared laser-focused on supporting the Trump administration's official narrative.
So too, Australian television host Rita Panahi.
No good comes from coming to a violent uprising with a loaded gun and extra ammo and violently obstructing law enforcement officers. That's what happened in Minneapolis, and that's why a man is dead.
A view rejected out of hand by her colleague, Sky's star anchor Andrew Bolt.
They shot him, and Kristi Noem, Trump's Secretary for Homeland Security, then lied about it, calling the dead man, nurse Alex Pretty, a terrorist.
Indeed, within 48 hours of the shooting, Trump's usual allies were beginning to turn.
There is no evidence he was a terrorist intent on a massacre. The American people didn't vote for these scenes, and you can't continue to order them to not believe their lying eyes.
Fox host Maria Bartiromo was one of those pushing back in this interview with FBI Director Kash Patel.
How was he threatening Border Patrol? What was the threat? He had his camera, right? He was filming it.
That's something that I will let the DHS and the prosecutors, because they are the ones investigating that case.
Some, including here at the ABC, weren't waiting for the outcome of that investigation, with Auntie being forced to correct its Global Affairs editor's premature claim that Pretty's death was a murder. But by then, the video evidence was, in any case, shifting the ground beneath the White House narrative.
Stephen Miller labeled Pretty a domestic terrorist. Does the president agree with them?
Look, as I've said, I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Pretty in that way.
With the removal of Border Control Commander Greg Bovino and the wheeling in of Trump's border tsar, and yes, that's his real title.
President Trump and I, along with others in the administration, have recognized that certain improvements could and should be made.
Improvements needed perhaps, but plenty of room still in the president's heart to republish video of Alex Pretty captured 11 days before his death, whipping up renewed claims Pretty was no angel. Another pearl of moral clarity from a rogue president. Not least because Pretty was the fourth person gunned down by Trump's irregulars, including Renee Good. And not the first to be suggested by the media as deserving of it.
She didn't deserve to be shot in the face. Yes, she did.
This is, I am chastened to say, where it appears we've landed. Hasty justifications of extreme violence by the state and willful blindness by some to what all of us can plainly see. Outrageous for a government, but even worse for a so-called fourth estate. And now to long-awaited news for Melbourne's long-suffering commuters.
We're very excited here today. Finally, the Metro tunnel is opening after years of construction and roadwork.
The long-promised solution to Melbourne's worsening congestion, the multi-billion-dollar Metro tunnel finally opened in November with 9 kilometres of subway, 5 new underground stations and a grand reopening of the city's central square. But after a long and rather difficult birth, including allegations of design faults, a string of multi-billion-dollar budget blowouts and even safety concerns, as the big day neared, the Victorian government was leaving nothing to chance, dusting off the working-class man, offering the good burgers of Melbourne a free ride and ensuring the cameras were there for one particular commuter's journey to work. And nowhere was the tunnel's opening more lavishly reported than on 7 News, which went to great lengths to celebrate Jacinta Allen's very special moment.
Welcome to this special edition of 7's Afternoon News, live from Melbourne's new Metro tunnel.
2 days before the opening, 7 News broadcast its 4 p.m. bulletin from inside the new Town Hall station, leading with the new tunnel, returning to it after the first ad break and gushing over its flashy new technology, its long and glittering escalators and its many tasty treats. With 7's anchor applying the blowtorch to the tunnel's project director.
But apparently you do have a favourite station.
It's a bit like choosing your favourite child.
And to the State Transport Minister.
What does the Metro tunnel mean for Melbourne's public transport network?
So how did 7 get such intimate access? Well, in an ad break 34 minutes into the news, there came this little clue.
7 News is brought to you by Metro Tunnel, opening Sunday.
Yes, that's the state government buying 7's 4 p.m. news and weather.
There are plenty of places to stay dry here at Anzac Station, though, which I'm thinking so far is my favourite station.
Which, I might point out, hewed rather nicely with the Victorian government's official pamphlet.
The distinctive timber canopy is 85 metres long, designed to blend into the leafy surrounds.
And this cross on sunrise on the day of the tunnel opening was actually a sponsored segment, according to internal memos to staff. Not that 7's viewers were any the wiser. Victoria's Transport Minister told us she makes no apologies for this rather sweet arrangement. And after we asked 7 what on earth it was smoking when it thought this was a good idea, though not in so many words, a spokesperson assured us it was always going to report the tunnel's opening and...
7 News retained full editorial independence over all its news content, and no content was reviewed or approved by anyone outside the 7 News team prior to broadcast.
It's all a bit of a shame, really, because when 7's journalists weren't being dragooned into slavish advertising, they proved just as sharp as their rivals, reporting plenty of real news, from these protests on the day of the opening to interviews with those outside Melbourne paying for a project they won't be using. The writing and publishing of advertorial by professional journalists is, well, pretty gross. For a capital city TV news outfit to do it is grosser still. But for 7 Melbourne to do a deal like this with Spring Street on the eve of an election year is frankly astonishing and cannot but put a dent in viewers' trust that it will hold the Victorian government to account. What a fundamental error of judgment. And that's all from us tonight. Be sure to check us out on ABC iView as well as YouTube and Facebook. You can find full statements on our website. And don't forget to send us your tips. See you next week.